So I'm going to record or speak of my baby birth story. I gave birth about a month ago to my wonderful baby boy, Anthony, and my birth and labor didn't go nearly as bad as I thought it would, but it also didn't start out to be the prettiest. And there goes my air conditioner. Whoops. Um, so the day before I went into labor, my contractions were 5 minutes apart, which my doctor told me, that's good. When they get that far, go to the hospital, get everything checked out. And I wasn't dilated enough, which oddly was very weird. So I went back home because I was supposed to be induced 3 days after I gave birth. And, we had everything set up and I was ready to go. I planned for it. And, my contractions when I went home that night had just gotten so worse. They went from being a tight pain to being full on, just I was crying, screaming. I started beating the crap out of my boyfriend on our way to the hospital again. And I got to the hospital and they told me I had to get that weird gown, and then my water broke. And it was the scariest thing because I had never ever in my life, I'm 19 and a mom, and just the thought of my water breaking, it's nowhere near peeing yourself or periods. It was really awkward for me. And I remember right after that happened, I told the nurse who's in the room, because I was just getting all my vitals checked because my contractions hurt so bad. I didn't even know I was going into labor yet. So they put me in a bed and they were like, okay, well, we're going to wait until you're ready. And they had a doctor come in and check me, and he's like, okay, yeah, well, if you want an epidural, we're going to have to put it in now and all this other stuff. And by that time, I called my mother, and she's been the most wonderful person throughout my entire pregnancy. I love her so much. She's an amazing woman. And I was supposed to call my little sister, but my mom said, no, don't do that. I'll get her and I'll do all that. And my boyfriend was outside parking the car because he had to go park in the garage, and because valet wasn't up, which is something that maternity and labor is supposed to have at our hospitals, being as I'm from Texas. So I called my mom, told her, hey mom, my water broke, I'm going into labor. And she had been waiting for this because I was due on Christmas, and I ended up giving birth on New Year's Eve. And called her, and she's so excited, and she's like, oh my god, okay, I'm coming. She full forcefully told my stepdad, the man who raised me, I gotta go towards giving birth. And he's like, oh, okay, go. And they were in a food truck, and it's super, super funny how he just went from cooking some grilled cheeses to go to our daughter's side. And so my mom called my sister, and my sister was at her father's, because my mom has had many husbands. She's had two. And so she got her, and they came up here. My boyfriend had come back into the room, and he's all like, so what are they gonna do? And I was like, well, I'm going into labor. My water broke. And he's kind of freaked out, and he wasn't gonna be with me in the room anyways, because he has an issue with other bodily fluids that aren't his own, especially that aren't ones that are his own. So, the thought of labor kind of freaked him out a little bit, because that involved many, many bodily fluids he didn't want to have to deal with. So, I waited in my room. They had me hooked up to an IV from my hand, which is not the best place to put an IV on me. I have really small veins in my hand. And I even tried telling them that, and they were like, well, we really don't have a choice. You have to put it in your hand. That's where we have to put it. And I was like, no, I don't want to. So we did all that, and I was just sitting there. I was watching Family Guy. Or no, it was 12 o'clock in the morning. I was watching The Maury Show, and Steve Wilkos. And I refuse to watch Bill Cunningham. I'm sorry. I don't. This is a TV show set for screaming. Why are you in a suit, sir? So I was just watching that, and we were just all waiting. And my boyfriend's friends, who would become my friends, they came because I was allowed to have 3 people in the room with me, which was going to be my mom and my sister. When I thought I could only have 2, but when I said I could have a third one, I added my friend Autumn, and she's also pregnant at the time. She was going to be due 2 months after I was. So I wanted her to be there purely because she's a good, supporter, and she's a very, loving person. And on top of that, so she knows what she's about to go through in a couple of months, so it's not as scary for her. So she doesn't know what the unknown looks like. And so I was just sitting there, and they came in, they made me sign all these papers, which, my papers were all like, in the case of emergency C-section, we want you to sign all of it beforehand, so we don't have to have you sign it when we're trying to, give you the anesthesias and try and put you to sleep or whatever to get you there. And for the epidural, which I'm gonna tell you how big of a wuss I became at the end of my pregnancy, because I told myself I was gonna have an all-natural birth. I wanted a water birth, but that ended up not happening. And I was like, I don't want an epidural. I want to endure this. And by the time my contractions had come, I couldn't deal with the pain. So I was all like, epidural now, right now. This hurts. And so they were all like, okay, well, we have to, do all this, and it's gonna be in your back. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not really okay with people putting needles into my spine. I have a weird thing where I think someone's going to F something up really bad, and I'm going to end up being in the hospital a little bit longer, and I may not be able to walk again. And so they were like, well, we have to use lidocaine. And if none of you know what lidocaine is, it's a numbing agent that hurts so bad when they put it in due to what it's made out of. And it didn't hurt when I got my epidural. It just felt like a little stinging and a lot of pressure. The pressure hurt alone. But, I didn't want them to use lidocaine because I had already had lidocaine once before. During, I think it was about like my 4th to 5th month, I ended up having a swollen lymph node under my arm. And the only way they can get those out when they're infected like that is to, numb it and squeeze it all out, get all the pus and the disgustingness out, and they have to rip the core out, and they pack you with the little medicated string stuff so it can still drain, and so you don't have to worry about it closing up. And when they did it in my arm, it just hurt so bad. I kicked my nurse in the face, and my doctor didn't warn me. She was just like, okay. I screamed so loud. So they were like, okay, well, let me get the needle ready for the lidocaine. So I'm awkwardly hanging over my pillow like this. Like, my arms are, up here. I look like I don't know what I looked like. I was just weird looking. And so they stuck the needle in my spine. They gave me the lidocaine, and it felt weird. And then they put the epidural. It's like a little tube, I guess. I didn't get to see anything. I didn't want to see anything, that's for sure. And they put it in my spine. And so they taped it all up, and I had tape all up and down my back. And they were like, okay, now you can lay down, the effects will start to come in, and then, depending on when you need to start pushing will depend on your, the effect. So I started giving, because the way that it is the baby's head started to push down on my, I'm going to just say booty hole sensor, so it made me feel like I need to take, a massive dump. And I didn't at all, no, not whatsoever. It was just the baby pushing, and after a while they came in and checked on me again. They're like, okay, you're fully dilated, we need to get you pushing. And before that, they were like, well, in the event that you can't feel anything, we're going to have to, take you off or put you in an emergency C-section. Because even with an epidural, if you can't feel anything below your waist, you're basically screwed, because that means you can't feel what you're doing, so you can't feel yourself pushing the baby out or not. And So they gave me a little bit of Pitocin or something. It started with a P. And they did that, and my contractions started coming back, and they started hurting so bad. And I'm one of those people where if I hurt, I don't breathe. I just start holding my breath and clenching for dear life. Like, my teeth are immensely messed up because when I'm in severe pain, I clench my jaw really hard. Like, scary hard. And so my contractions started coming back, and since they were so close together at this point, it was just immense pain, and I wanted to hurt someone, and unfortunately I wasn't allowed to hurt anybody. So finally they came in and they're like, okay, you ready to push? So my boyfriend and my friend's boyfriend, they left, and they went around playing a game, because I guess the game that they play has like portals. It's called Ingress, I think. It has portals everywhere throughout like states and towns and the country, basically, and you have to go around and find some of them depending on what color you are, which is like blue or green. And he's a blue. Well, there were a lot of portals in my hospital, in the labor part particularly, that had a bunch of them. So he and his boyfriend went, and they were gone. And I'd only rested, like, I wasn't in labor for that long. I was in labor for like 15 minutes. Not labor, I was giving birth for about 15 minutes. I pushed, and then I found out, which was like the most scariest thing to me. My mom didn't tell me until he was about 2 weeks old, that when I was giving birth, they found out that the umbilical cord was wrapped around my son's neck twice. 2 times. And the last time, or the second to last time I pushed, his vitals dropped. So, like, he wasn't breathing, none of that stuff. So they had to cut me, which is the most painful form of cut, because they cut you from that area down to your butthole, and it just hurts really bad. Even, like, because I have a high, I guess you could say, like, metabolism for pain medication, it doesn't affect me very well. Like, it takes 10 ibuprofens just for me to feel comfortable when I'm on my period. And you're not even supposed to take 8 in a day, so I take at least like 12 in one day, and I'm just good. I'm normal to what everyone else is. And so, like, by this time, like, even 15 minutes in, like, I'd have the epidural in for a good 30 minutes, and it was already starting to wear off. And this stuff is supposed to last for hours. And it was doing nothing. My body had gotten used to it. It was just ready to get it all out of my body. It was all like, no, I don't want you here. And the only thing I could still hold on to, that I knew that it was still in my body, was the fact that my left leg was in that, it had that feeling of, my foot's asleep, but right before the pins and needles feeling, where you can't move your leg. It's just that tingly feeling. And that was the only way I knew that I still had the epidural, because I couldn't move it. I couldn't move my leg whatsoever after that. And so they had to cut me, and they got him out. And I'm not a very, like, touchy, feely, emotional person. Like, I'm not going to cry over silly things. Like, I've cried severely about 4 or 5 times in my life. And 2 of them were funerals, one for my great-great-grandmother and one for my best friend's father, who I'd grown up with. And the other one was when I heard my son cry for the first time. That first cry you hear, like, that they're in pain, because when they're in your stomach or in your uterus, like, everything that they hear in there is not nearly as loud as it is out here. So when they first come out, like, the light hurts because they're used to darkness, and the sounds are really loud. Like, you could not be making a sound and they'll still cry because it hurts their ears. And he was just crying, and I started crying just a little bit, just a little bit. And, after they cleaned them all up, got everything done, they came out to me. One of the nurses came out to me, and she's all like, would you like, to hold your son? And they had him wrapped up. It's called a swaddle. It's a weird blanket thing that they do. And I held him to me, and then I just started bawling. Just at that moment, nothing was as perfect as, holding my son for the first time. Like, yeah, he'd been inside me for 9 months, but nothing can compare to the first time you ever hold your child. Nothing. Not whatsoever. The reason I keep looking over here, by the way, is because he's next to me in a little pillow fort, sleeping, taking a nap. He's super adorable. I'll show you guys in a minute. But, that just brought tears to my eyes. And my mom, who's not much older than I am, but teen pregnancy runs in our family. I was 19, my mom was 19, my grandma was 17, and my great-grandma was 16. We've all had teen pregnancies. It just runs in the family. And the first girl who's ever born is usually the one who ends up being a teen pregnancy. Because I have a younger sister. She's going to be 15, and she's not going to have a kid for a while. My mom has a sister who's the same age as me. She's 19 right now. And she's not going to have a kid for a while. All these, it's just the first. Because my nanny, my great-grandmother, gave birth. The first birth she gave was my grandmother. My grandma's first child was my mom. And my mom's first child was me. And I kind of broke that chain because I had a boy first. My first child is a boy. So I don't have to worry about that as much, but I still have to worry about it, especially now in this generation. Ugh. So we did that, and so the second person to hold him aside from me was my mom, and then my sister, and all the nurses, which I was not fond of. Germs with small children, especially a newborn baby, germs are just very there. They're just there. So I got to hang out with him, and I had to spend 2 days in the hospital after he was born, which was not the fondest thing in the world. I don't like hospitals, don't like doctors. But the only cool thing was the doctor, the OBGYN who helped me deliver my son, was the same OBGYN who delivered my sister and my aunt, my 19-year-old aunt and my almost 15-year-old sister. He helped deliver both of them. So it was kind of like a third-generation thing. He'd helped give birth to my son. And I wasn't supposed to have him. I was supposed to have my OBGYN, but my OBGYN wasn't there. It was his off day. And so they didn't call him. They were just like, oh, get another OBGYN. Who cares? Which was like, where's my doctor? So I just remember after that, because it was all a bit of a blur after that. They took out the epidural and all that, and I couldn't walk. They told me I wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom without someone until the epidural had fully worn off. Because it was still in my body. It was still affecting me just a little bit, but it wasn't there the same way. But the first time I had to go to the bathroom after my son was born, I wasn't allowed to walk by myself. I had a doctor help me walk in along with my little IV pole, just slowly scrunching away. And they had to stitch me up down there because that is a wound, and it just hurt so bad to even move my legs a certain way. And I wanted to scream, and I'd gotten my first stitches in my life, which is not a fun thing. Stitches on their own, not fun. Stitches down there, even worse. It hurts so bad. You don't want anyone up in there, so why in God's name would you want a little curved needle spinning some, dissolvable thread? No, this is not okay. It was awful. So I had to go to the bathroom, and I had to have someone walk me, and my son was just, to me, he was so small. And I don't know if it's because, I grew up with a bit of a larger family. Not saying that we're not tall. No. Nowhere near tall. We're all about 5-something. We're not in the 6s. My boyfriend is. My boyfriend's 6'1". But not that much taller than, the tallest guy in my family, who is, 5'11". So, I got to hold him. He was just so small, which is shocking, because when they told me he was 7 pounds, 7 ounces, I was no, he can't be. He's so tiny. And then I was wait, my doctor lied to me, because I went to another doctor aside from my OBGYN, the actual sonographer, and they're oh, he's going to be 8 pounds, 9 ounces. That's how big he might be. And I was alright, he's going to be a big baby. That's cool. And he wasn't even that big, and that just to me was amazing. I love my son. And ever since, it's just been wonderful. I mean, I've had 2 extremely bad nights with my son. 2. Um, I couldn't figure out what was wrong the first time, and my husband came home, and I'll say that I'm not neglectful of my child. I had burped him like several times, and it turned out he just had like a gas bubble trapped. And so my boyfriend got it out of him, and he burped, and then he was fine for the rest of the night. And then the second one was actually just about a day ago. I'd been up for 2 days. I'd been up for over 24 hours. Like, just from one day to the next day. Like, I'd been up the entire time. And he was screaming bloody murder like I thought someone was, like, killing my child. And I couldn't get him to stop. And I just started bawling because I was sleep deprived. I was scared something was wrong with him. And nothing made it better. So I called my mom because, being a first-time mom, I don't know everything. I really don't. And I'm not going to say, everything is perfect being a mom. Woo. No, it's not perfect at all. There are a lot of things that you never would expect that you'd have to do that you have to do. And so I called my mom, and I was like, I think something's wrong with Anthony. I think something wrong is, like, severely wrong with him. And my mom could hear in the background my son screaming. So she had to come and help me with that. And turns out I'm just not making enough milk because I am a breastfed mom. I'm a breastfeeding mom. And now I breastfeed and I use formula. And it's very, very difficult for me to, not have that form of connection all the time with my son. But at the same time, I'm not producing enough milk to sustain his hunger. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I just want him to be okay and healthy and well fed. And that's all that you can really ask for. So now I feed him. I change his diapers. His father is in his life. Not much, but he's there. And he's just... I'll show you guys. This little section right here with the TV and the cups and the Mountain Dew. I know y'all can see that green can, that Mountain Dew, the bottle, right there. Yeah, I'm touching it. This is the gaming station. There's a pile of games right there. And there's right underneath that pile of games is an Xbox 360 in blue. And right down here is an Xbox One. That is what my boyfriend does all day when he's not working. And as you can tell, clearly I don't have a very big place. I live in an efficiency. Yay. It's not the best place, but it's still a place, and I love it. But ever since he's been born, he's been harassed by pictures and photos, and just everyone wants to take his picture, and everyone wants to see him, and I've had people on my boyfriend's side of the family who I've never met yet, who now suddenly want to come over just so they can meet, the next addition in their family. I've had some of his family members who I can't stand, like personally, and I can't stand him. His brother, for instance, I don't like his brother. His brother is an extremely rude person. He seems to think that statistics in certain ways are better than, trying to be sympathetic. And then his uncle, one of his uncles, wants to see him, and because of the last time I saw him, I don't want him anywhere near my child. Because the last time I saw my boyfriend's uncle, he was screaming in front of the entire family, and people who aren't even a part of the family, which were me and my boyfriend's brother's girlfriend. So I guess like my sister-in-law, in a way. Like, me and her were just sitting in the living room, like, awkwardly sitting next to each other, like, when is this going to end? And it was just one of those things where I'm like, no, you're not going to see my child. Ever. And I feel bad because his aunt, who is married to this uncle, is an extremely wonderful person. She's a lovely woman. I get along with her quite frequently. But because of the uncle, I don't want my child around that anger. That's over something that happened over 9 years ago. So but I promised you I'd let you see him, so hold on. Being held on $1 million bond for aggravated kidnapping. He was the last person seen with He's just a big boy. Gonna get you a cold for me. And this is him. This is my little boy. His name's Anthony. And he is my world. So, thank you for watching. Bye.